Well, good evening again. This is Dr. Kit. You're on the Shake Up with me. I'm so glad to know that you're here along with me. Also, it's always good to see those that are able to come from one week to the next. And on the Shake Up, the whole idea here is not to change the structure of things, but to create a reframe. You change the way you think, change the way you look at something. You get a whole new idea, not just about things, but about yourself. Because reframing always starts with something about the person. All right. So we're so glad to know that you have taken the time out of your busy day. You've been doing this now for over a year, and we are so thankful. And we have a good program for you tonight. I got a wonderful young man. His name is Jerrod, and we're going to get him on in just a minute. Before we do that, let me just take care of some business here. We would want you to like, follow, share, and subscribe. It is the lifeblood of this and all good. There are some good podcasts out there. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe them to create a community of podcasters, and we will all get the job done because we all come from a different perspective, a different way. But as long as the message is good, that's all we care about. Okay. So like me, them, follow, share, and subscribe for them too. Okay. Too much evil stuff going on there. We need to build this community. All right. So listen, I thank you. And if you would like to, and we would like you to be a part of the show, just like our guests and many other guests over the year or so we've been on air now, just contact Dr. Kid Speaks at gmail.com, and my staff will get you on here and get you set up, and we'll just kick it off, okay? And so if you'd like to be on camera, that's fine. If you'd like to be off camera, that's fine too. But of course, we want to see who we're talking to. That's a better way to go, and also the visitors would too, so that they can connect the voice with an experience with the face. All right. So thank you so much. All right. Okay. Enough said. So now I'm going to bring on my guest. And he is going to introduce himself because that's the way we do it here. I don't need to read their resume. They are their resume on legs and clothed in this body here. So come on then, Jerrod. Come on down, man, and introduce yourself. Tell us whatever you want to tell us about yourself as an introduction. Okay? All right. Go ahead. It's yours.
Hey, how y'all doing? My name is Jerrod Smith. I'm a young man from Huntsville, Alabama. I am a believer, and I am a minister, a pastor of a church called Freedom Church, and I have a coaching program called The Fight Club. And we fight for our lives and help others fight for theirs. And we have 4 main focuses, and that is to help you heal, grow, overcome, and then tell your story with confidence. And so I'm glad to be here with Dr. Kit tonight, the Shake Up. I'm excited. Let's go.
All right, let's go. Okay, let's go, Jerrod, man. Well, listen, I think my understanding is that you're really concerned about attitudes of our young people and attitudes of people in general, okay? So can you tell me, and I know there's a broad spectrum, so we have time to kind of mash it through, as we go down through this evening, okay? So, what kind of an attitude are you concerned about with we have our millennials, we have our Gen Z, and we get all these kind of names and titles we give groups of cohorts these days. Man, I can't even keep up with those things. So can you kind of just walk us through, and then we'll get to why you created what you created, okay?
Yes. So one of my main focuses, and this is something just through personal experience, is when people display nonchalance. All right. And nonchalance has 2 definitions. This is what I found out. The first definition is indifference. And it just simply means that I don't care. And through the work that I've done, I even worked at a 9-month inpatient treatment facility for 3 years. due to a private practice. When I would do a motivational interview with the client for the first time, what I would find out when I would ask them questions, one of the questions I would ask them is, "Who are you?"
Ooh, ouch.
And 100% of the men that I interviewed, they would tell me what happened to them. I would ask them, "Who are you?" They would tell me about an event. And what I come to realize is that most people's identity is shaped by events of the past that have negatively affected them. We can call it traumatic events, but the event has negatively affected them, and now their identity is shaped in that event. And so their whole identity is from a times past up to this moment. And a lot of times they don't know that not only is their identity shaped in the past, so their pain, but they've taken the approach of stopping caring about life. And so indifference just means I don't care. Well, here's the thing: what you don't care about, you don't improve. What you don't care about, you don't cultivate. And so a lot of times when people experience these events, there's things called trauma responses, right? People can fight. Oftentimes when a person begins to fight off the people that hurt them, they have a tendency to keep on fighting, even when the battle is over. Then you have people that run. And the tendency is, if I started running when the pain came, when I'm triggered, I'll keep on running. And so they just keep running in life. But shutting down is when people run within,
Wow.
and they've learned how to retreat from life by escaping within and running away from pain to some type of pleasure. Whether it be with young people, video games, whether it be through, getting a little girlfriend, boyfriend and having some type of sexual encounter. It may be through smoking, drinking, whatever the case. But oftentimes when a person is trying to escape some type of pain, they're looking for an out. And if they can't escape the environment that they're in, they'll just run away within and they'll just live a shut down life. And the reason why I'm so acquainted with this is because this is something I did when I was in seventh grade. Well, when I was in sixth grade, my parents split. And my mom, at the time, she didn't deal with this split in a healthy manner. As a matter of fact, she got mentally hospitalized for 3 years as, as she got diagnosed with depression and schizophrenia. Well, while she was going through the beginning stages of her mental breakdown, I had to miss a lot of school because she was kind of unresponsive at home. And I can remember one day at the apartment we stayed in, I was so upset about not being able to control the environment, not being able to control what was going on, not being able to have my father there, my mom's not being responsive. I'm so angry, I'm so upset that I cried in that room that day. And I said to myself, I'll never let anybody see me like this. And so in that moment, I just accepted being nonchalant. I just bottled up all my emotions. And from that point up until I was probably in my 30s, I had learned how to just act like everything was okay when it wasn't. If you would ask me, "Hey, how you doing, Jerrod?" I'll be like, "I'm good. I'm straight. I'm okay." And a lot of times people, and I'm not saying everyone, but when we're dealing with circumstances that are outside of our control and we can't change them and we don't know what to do, it's a tendency that we can just shut down, withdraw from life, bottle up all our emotions and just act as if everything is okay when it's really not. And so with the Fight Club, one of the things we focus on is helping people unpack repressed emotions, negative experiences, overcome this nonchalance, because often we suffer in silence. And if you never break the silence, you never break the cycles. That makes sense.
Yeah, man, you said it all, man. Thank you all so much for being on it. Well, man, you said everything. I want to shut this down, man. Listen, man, you're taking everything away that I'm going to ask or talk about, but now I'm going to have to become creative, man. But I thank you. Thank you for that. And I thank you for your definition of nonchalant, and I had looked it up too, and it's one of the things that said appearing calm, relaxed, or connected. Stuff you talked about, especially in situations where others might expect worry or excitement. With someone with a nonchalant attitude, often seems indifferent. And so you talked about all of these things. Now, and then you say, well, listen, when I was a young kid, my parents split and all this kind of stuff, and it negatively impacted her, and you were not able to do what you would like to do to help your mom, and your dad was absent. And there is this thing that it's called like learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
You become helpless, and you become you do it for so long, and you keep doing it until you perfect this whole idea of being helpless. All right, to the point where you don't want to be helpful. You don't want to not be helpless, because when you are helpless, you got a lot of crowd around you. Right? You can control a whole lot of people. So as you were talking about some of these guys, was there any kind of a helplessness that you saw in them, why they remain kind of a nonchalant? And not just guys. And so we're going to talk about whether or not girls are some of the girls that you've seen like that, and what are the difference between the behaviors between the guys and the girls. So why don't you take that away?
Absolutely. So just to piggyback on this first definition of indifference, I don't care. When a person decides to not care, often they'll major on things that are minor and minor on things that are major. And let me explain. When they major on things that are minor, these are temporary gratification, right? Running away from pain and running to pleasure. And when they're running away from the pain and they're trying to find some type of pleasure, this is their escape. But what happens is it shapes their mentality, their abilities, their reality, their identity, etc. The things that they'll major on, the minor things in life, their entire life will be all consumed with it. This is where addictions happen, where I may have got introduced to something that made me feel good in the moment. And because I couldn't control what was going on at my home, say, or I couldn't control the painful events or the people that were kind of perpetrating these events or hurting me, I could control this pleasure aspect. And so now I just keep running to these things. And before I know it, now the thing has me under control. Okay. So, but the major things that we should focus on that we minor on, like me particularly, my schoolwork, I stopped really working on my schoolwork because my mom was so occupied with things going on at home. And so when my schoolwork I wasn't focusing on that, then my grades started slipping. Then I stopped. I didn't even want to show up. So I started skipping school. And eventually, by the time I got to high school, I got put out of school. And all this was the result of me not caring or not knowing how to care and running towards, first I ran towards video games and staying out all night. Then I started running to smoking and drinking. Then I started running to little girls when I was younger. And eventually I got involved in gang life. And all these things were escapes away from the pain that I was experiencing. Because I couldn't control this pain, I could control these things. And so this is what I gravitated towards. And so back to your question, I want to interject another definition of mediocre. Another definition of indifference. Another definition of nonchalance.
There we go.
And it's mediocre.
Yes.
And mediocre just means average at best, or not putting forth effort. And so a lot of the guys that I saw in the programs, they got to a point where they had stopped caring at some junction of life. They had ran to pleasures, running away from their pains. And just the cycle of it all got them to the point where they just stopped. You stop seeing any type of productivity, any type of growth, any type of momentum of their life. And so their life stopped traveling like this, and they start traveling like this. Reminds me of the children of Israel, right? In the wilderness, right? instead of going a small journey, getting to where they needed to go, they end up traveling in cycles. And often, if you don't process things that go on or don't even talk about it, then you'll never break the cycle, right? So I see a lot of men develop victim mentality, and they believe because of what happened to them, things should happen for them. And so now the victimhood creates entitlement. And so they believe people should come to their aid. They believe and they gravitate towards relationships that accommodate them. Instead of them growing and looking for standard, say in relationships or just life in general, they'll look for people to accommodate their victimhood. And you'll see these codependent dynamics, right? Because they need the type of person that's going to always bend over backwards for them. Here it is. They're going to find those people because they can use, misuse, manipulate. But the people that'll really be stern, people that'll hold them to a standard or hold them accountable, you'll see they'll have a clash with those type of people. And so I've seen it a lot with that community, and I only saw what I saw in myself. I had to deal with all of these things. I got into a lot of trouble when I was younger, and I used to feel like it was my parents' fault. Like if they would have did what they were supposed to do, then I wouldn't be in these situations. But I had to come to realize that, you know what, no matter if they showed up or not, I still got to be responsible for my own life. I still got to be accountable for my own actions. And I can sabotage my life because I'm hurt, or I can decide to make a difference and make a change.
All right. Listen, thank you so much. I think there was a question that it said, how are you able to escape gang life with your life? Oh man, now
Okay.
you need to answer to that. You know,
So
that's a powerful question, man.
I'm not ashamed of my testimony. At 19, I committed a crime that ended up leading me into prison. And by the time I was 21, I got incarcerated, and I had to do 5 years in Alabama Department of Corrections. And I had a divine encounter while I was at a prison called Kilby.
Oh, you were at Kilby? That's down
In Montgomery.
Montgomery, yeah. That was I remember in the old days, man. That's a place where the rough guys go.
It was a rough place. I ain't gonna lie to you. It was rough.
Yeah.
I was 21 years old, and I actually went to a chapel service, and this inmate preacher was preaching, and he preached about a message. It was a painting of the devil playing another man in chess. And the preacher, how he set it up, he said it looked like the devil had the man checkmated. And he said they were at an art gallery, a husband and wife, and the husband was just intrigued by this painting, and he looked at the painting for 5 minutes. 5 minutes turned to 10 to 15 to 30 minutes. And he was like, it was something about the painting that intrigued him. And his wife was like, are you ready to go? He was like, hold on. There's something about this painting that's drawn me to it. And he finally realized that the devil didn't have this man checkmate. The man had one more move, and that move was Jesus. That's how he preached it, right? And
yeah.
I promised, the Spirit of God told me to get up and go to the altar. And I went up, and the man of God prayed for me, and I just repented. And I carried a stigma because I got into so much trouble when I was younger. I carried a stigma for a lot of years. And when the man prayed for me, I just felt all of the stigma just lift off me. I just got liberated in that moment. I knew I was forgiven of my sins. I know I had new life. I couldn't hardly explain it, but I knew something had changed in that moment. And from then, I just had a hunger for the things of God. And I actually left Kilby, because Kilby is like a processing center. I got sent to another place called Draper. And while at Draper, I was still claiming gangster disciple. And so in prison, you either hang with your hometown or you hang with your gang set.
There you
And
go.
so I was hanging with gangster disciples in Huntsville. All right. And in prison, every cell was 7 cells, but they had men of God that got saved that were ministers in prison. And so every cell had a pastor, had an assistant pastor, had deacons. And they did something called prayer call every night where they would just get in a group and they would announce it like prayer call. And everybody who wanted to pray would just meet up in the middle of the cell. And this is like a dorm. So you got like 200 people in here, 2 stories. So they just meet up in the middle. Everybody prayed. So I started going to prayer call. And then they did Bible studies on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. So I started going to Bible study. And one day, one of the guys that was in the same set that I was in, he started kind of moving a little weird with some homosexuals, and nothing against homosexuals, but he was moving kind of weird with them. And at the same time, I met a gentleman, his name Demetrius Huckabee, and this man was a prophet. He walked up to me, and the man just told me about my parents' situation. He told me about, he knew I did music. God just gave him some insight about me that only God knew because I didn't know the man, right? And when he gave me this insight, he told me, he said, man, why don't you just start fellowship with us a little more? And so I started getting involved in the things of the ministry while I was incarcerated. And from that point, the way the ministry was set up on Friday nights and Sunday mornings, the inmates actually ran the entire service. And so each cell had pastor, assistant pastor, and deacons. And then you had the corporate body, and they had a pastor and assistant pastor over the corporate body. We had a choir, we had evangelism ministry, we had a prophetic ministry where 24 people prayed together, prayed 1 hour a day. So we had a prayer chain, and the prophets met 3 days out of the week. I mean, the prophets met every day, but 3 days out of the month, we all fasted and prayed. And I just seen some very sophisticated things going on. I mean, a move of God was going on in the prison, and that's where I ended up getting involved in the ministry. And I eventually became the pastor of that cell I was in. Then I got moved to a couple different prisons, but I got an opportunity to minister at every prison I went to. I've been to 6 prisons while I was there in that 5 years. And God really turned my whole life around and kind of helped me get away from that gang life, get away from my hometown, people, I knew from the streets, and really just launched me forth in ministry. And so that's where my whole ministry journey began.
Wow. Oof. I remember, I know Kilby, and I know Draper too. And there was another one where all the young kids used to go. I can't remember the name of that one there, but that was a pretty rough place because I worked at the time I was working for the state
Okay.
Department of Mental Health, so we go and visit all of these different places, man, and it was pretty rough, and they had gangs inside the prisons, and sad to say that there were some of those gang members were paid by workers to go and beat up on other guys, and it was very, very sad to see that going on in the place where it's supposed to be secure. They were not. So that kind of brings me back to um, so you were able to escape the gang life, and that was a very nice question, very, very, very good question, with your own life. And since you referenced the Bible, so I'm gonna go there too, because
Okay.
it seemed that if you were running away from God, and God said, Jerrod, I got a job for you. Huh?
Right.
There is this little book nestled in at the, coming on down to the end of the Old Testament, and it's named after this man. His name is Jonah.
Mm-hmm.
You remember him, right?
Yes, sir.
God had a plan for him, but he had another plan, and God had to arrest him.
Right.
And then he got up and started running. When you're talking like this, I said, "Man, this man sounds like a Jonah. Like he knew better, but he said, no, God, I don't want to do all of that." And he saved you to do what it is you're doing now. Okay, so this nonchalant thing, this word is. Do you like when you think about our society, or Huntsville, or a city, or state, wherever you go, this nonchalant, this kind of a I call it, sometimes I call it the like the sailboat attitude. You just sit back and the wind catches the sail, and you just sit back and take you wherever you want to go. Okay, yeah,
Go with the flow.
yeah, yeah. And so when you have people like that, and they rather go down that road, this nonchalant road, how do and what are some of the ways that you think would work, because you can't get everybody, because you got to want to do like you wanted to do. You wanted to do a lot of things. You want to escape from that life, but you also want to take somebody with you in the escape so that they could look to you as you were moving, they were moving along with you. How do we help, like in today, May 5, 2025? How do we find some of these young kids, guys and girls who are have this sense of helplessness or hopelessness, and they feel that that's the easy way out? How do we find them and then begin to reframe their thinking?
So I would say people are around us every day, and most people, they've learned how to navigate life with a representative. I'll just say it like that. They have a version or aspect of themselves that they wear on the surface. A lot of people are compartmentalized, and the person they project is the person that they believe you won't reject. So they're living with a cover up. We think about the Bible when after Adam sinned, he heard God's voice, right? God was walking in the cool day, heard his voice, and he ran and he hid himself. And so when you notice people, if you're around them long enough, you can pick up on patterns. All right. You have to be self-aware. You have to be self-aware to pick up on the patterns. Okay. Because if you're not self-aware, then you don't even realize your own patterns. If you don't realize your own patterns, you never got to a place of self-discovery where you can recognize what's going on within yourself. Okay. So if you're around people long enough, you kind of pick up on the patterns, pick up on their triggered events, and pick up on how they respond to things. Meaning when they're angry, when they're upset, when they're discouraged, when they're frustrated. And often people respond in certain ways. Um, we said it earlier about the attitude, right? I believe attitudes are just defense. Sometimes people wear attitudes because they've been hurt before. And so the attitude is their means of armor to get you away from them. They'll
Mm,
say, people don't want to be around nobody with a bad attitude.
right.
Okay. Most people don't. But when you're in this type of business, you pick up on that. You realize that this attitude is from somewhere. And now that I can see where I can see the attitude itself, now I can start asking questions like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? I think love is a gateway to be able to explore in people's lives.
Yeah,
Let me
yeah,
give you a quick story. So
yeah.
back to when I was incarcerated, I'll never forget this. I was coming out of a Bible study and I got up, and it was like God just had me look around this entire cell. And I saw all these men, these grown men as children. I saw all these guys as children. And this is what God spoke to me. He said, when someone gives you their story, they're giving you their heart. Don't hurt them. People will tell you exactly what's on their mind and what's on their heart. The Bible says, out of the heart comes the issues of life, right? So if you're around people long enough, they'll tell you exactly what's going on with them. You may pick up on the attitude, you may pick up on the frustration, the anger, the discouragement, whatever. But if you listen to them long enough, they'll tell you exactly what's going on with them. But
Mm,
here's the thing, you can't hurt them. What love does is love cares for that heart, cares for that person's story. It doesn't dismiss them. It doesn't reject them, but it actually embraces them, right? The Bible says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. What love does is make a person feel safe in communicating without retreat. So here it is, back to Adam. A lot of people like Adam, they're running from things, because they're afraid of something and they're hiding behind something. Okay. So when you begin to communicate, as they talk to you and tell you their story, you can begin to find out, what are you running from? What are you afraid of? And what are you hiding behind? And most people actually won't help, but they've just seen or they trusted in the people to help them that didn't show up. And so now this is why they have the attitude. Now this is why they have the hopelessness. Now this is why they're frustrated in life, because they believe that other people may have gotten help, but they haven't got it. And it's hard for people that've been hurt to trust. The Bible says that a brother offended is harder to be won than a strong castle. His offense are like bars on a castle. And so a lot of people are hurt and they're offended by especially family members that didn't show up the way they feel like they should have. And now through the offense, they've kind of ran from people. They're afraid of relationships and closeness, and they're hiding behind this persona that they've created. And I just believe in the Spirit of God will allow you to be in places where you can actually be a blessing to people. But it takes that, bearing all things, believing all things, hoping all things, and enduring all things. And I'll say this last thing about that. This is something I was talking to my church leaders about. I said, leaders don't take screenshots of people. They develop in dark rooms. They develop people in dark rooms. And so screenshot is like, I believe exactly what I'm seeing, how you're responding and acting in this moment. But real leaders develop people. They don't take what they get from the person. They have the belief that I believe God can do something miraculous in your life. And I'm willing to invest my time, my energy, my effort to see things change about you. And so I've learned when you can hope in somebody, and when you hold them to a standard and you expect more out of them, they begin to change and conform into that standard. And so it's not that people are not aiming high enough. A lot of times people are just aiming too low because they don't have anybody around them that's helping them aim higher.
Oh, okay, wonderful. I like the and it's more than an analogy, because you just went back to when they had the 35 millimeter cameras. They dropped the spools, and of course, the image is on it's on this. It's really there, but you have to develop this,
right,
and watch. And it's a very slow process. This guy moving things around in the negative, and then it slowly begins to see what's on there. And I like that. That's your analogy of that. But then it also means that there is this one word that we have to. It's called patience.
That's right.
Patience. And we have to be patient with people. But in order for me to be patient with people, I've got to be patient with myself.
That's right.
Because I've got to wait on me while I'm waiting on them. I'm not trying to think that we need to travel at the same speed. Oh man. So let me ask you. I got to ask you this, because this is an amazing topic you're dealing with here. It is this nonchalant attitude. How do you get somebody to give it up? Because you referenced this a little earlier, I say, well, and I think we all know this at some level, and you talked about addiction. I've never known a person to give up something that brings pleasure, except if there's a cost that they're not willing to pay.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
They'll hold on to that thing. Because like you said earlier, only two things: east and west. The avoidance of pain, the pursuit of pleasure. But if that pleasure, they're not going to give it up. So how then do we help? And here's my take on this. These young kids, and even some not so young people, okay, have this nonchalant attitude. Don't think that they can become. When you ask the question, "Who am I?" The question that Moses asked God, "Who am I?" Well, Moses saw himself as a prince of Egypt. He saw himself as as an architect. He saw himself as a builder. He then saw himself as a shepherd, you know. But there was more. Moses did not see himself as the leader. That was the most at the very core of himself. So he was trying to get out of this thing by asking God, well, who am I? Don't you know that in don't you know that in Egypt there are, there are mug shots all over Egypt? It says Moses wanted dead or alive, and you're gonna send me that down. You understand what I'm saying? And some people are running away from this wanted dead or alive attitude. How do we get our young people? Because deep on the inside, behind the mask, is a doctor, a lawyer, oceanographer, a preacher, a teacher. You get the picture, right? How do we get them to get away from that sense of helplessness, hopelessness, to where there is hopefulness? Because that's what I'm getting out of this program you have. That's what you're doing. How do you get them to do that? To transfer from I can't, I've never tried, I don't think, the fear of failure. Then the fear of failure. How do you get them to get away from that?
It's a loaded question. I have a few different things.
Get out, yeah.
I'll just explain kind of the process of a few of my programs. Okay, so one of them is called Let's Unpack. I spoke about it a little bit earlier, and it's a book as well. I've written 5 books, and this is one of the books that I've written. And the reason I wrote it, because there's this movie called The Fight Club, right? And it came out in 1999. And there were rules to the Fight Club. And I'm not going to go into all details. You can kind of look it up on your own. But the number one rule in the Fight Club was don't talk about the Fight Club. And this is something I realized, that the things that we fight against the most, we're most silent about. And again, like I said, you can't break cycles until you break silence. The Bible says, confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that you be healed, right? Healing comes through confession, through communication. And the devil, his desire is, he has 5 weapons of warfare. I'm going to talk about them real quick. The first one is trauma. He wants to hit you so hard, especially when you're young, that you spend the rest of your life catching your breath, right? Then he wants to lead you into bondage because of the trauma. And bondage is just limited belief system, meaning I only believe that I can only go so far. I can only do so much in life because of what happened to me. Bondage leads you into immaturity, where you never see things come to fruition. And in that immature state, like we talked about a little earlier, this is where entitlement is developed, where people expect things to happen for them because of what happened to them. What I do in that state, helping people recognize the immaturity state, because when we're dealing with nonchalant, the second definition was mediocre. And when I begin to show people that you have great potential, but you don't have great effort. And what you don't care about, you don't cultivate. What you don't care about, you don't improve. And so I meet him right there. And I say, hey, look, what do you want in life? And get him to understand that your identity is a byproduct of your ability. So if they never see themselves capable of achieving anything greater than what they're currently experiencing, they won't ever give up the addictive aspect, the pleasure aspect. But once they begin to see that there's something greater out here for me, that God is actually destined for me to live out, then I could begin to see that the thing that I'm attaching myself to is only limiting my progress and my momentum. And so after immaturity, you have instability. And so a person, they never really stay at one place at one time long enough, because trauma response, remember, you fight, you run, or you shut down. And so when you have a triggered event, the temptation is to either, if you fought then, you fight now. If you ran then, you ran now. You run now. If you shut down then, you're probably shutting down now. So I have this, I call it a trauma awareness cheat sheet. And it's simply this. It's just the who, what, when, where, why, and how to my negative traumatic events. Because a lot of times things happen to us, but we never really sit down with the idea of how did I respond to this event then? And am I still carrying out the patterns now of how I responded then? And so we do a little digging in the past to figure out, okay, who hurt me? What happened? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Why do you think it happened? And how did it affect you? And when they begin to be able to answer these questions, now I ask, how did you respond? And when we figure out how they responded, oh, there goes the answer. Hey, the pattern that you had then is a pattern that you're still participating in now. And if you don't change the patterns, you'll never change your life. So when you're unstable, all that is they have a triggered event. They just keep running every time, or they keep fighting, or they keep shutting down when conflict happens. And so I tell them, I say, hey, look, conflict is just your data to navigate. A lot of times people run from conflict because it brings the memory of the traumatic event. But you can't grow out of life or outgrow your past if you never understand why conflict is there in the first place. And God blesses us with the opportunity of conflict to help us gather the data that we need in order to outgrow the circumstances that we're in. And so when people are unstable, they become vagabonds. And what that is a traveler. So they just go from relationship to relationship, job to job, place to place, city to city, because they never learn how to stay in one place long enough to sow their royal oats, you could say, or dig strong enough roots to be foundationed in this place. And so if you're following me, we had trauma, bondage, immaturity, instability, and finally, unproductivity. It's the devil's job to keep us unproductive, because that's the very thing that God mandated for all his creation, is to be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue, and have dominion. And so he wants us to be fruitful and reproduce who we are and what we do. He wants us to replenish, bring to life things. Then he wants us to subdue ourselves and then dominate in life, subdue and have dominion. But you can't do that when you have limited belief system. And so once I get people to understand, hey, you're a child of God and you're a child of purpose, and things may have happened to you that cause you to kind of slow down the momentum that now you've been achieving on a mediocre level. But guess what? If we deal with the pain issues, then I promise you, you'll outgrow your current set of circumstances and you'll be on the path of purpose. And so I kind of work with them just through progression. I have an 8-week program called Let's Unpack. And then I have some other coaching programs, and I have a small community called the Fight Club Community Connect. And we meet every Monday night at 8:30. And then we meet every Monday night at 8:30 for an hour-long session. And then we meet up Friday mornings at 6 o'clock to pray. And so I've kind of created these environments to create a safe space where people can communicate the things that have happened to them. Because when you get in the right environments and healing environments, people are not ashamed so much of what happened. They're just ashamed that they're still where they are as a result of what happened. So they feel ashamed or judged because of where they are, and they know they could be better, do better, but they don't have any type of support system. And so the Fight Club is that support system. And I believe, like I said, helping people heal, grow. You can't escape your life. You have to outgrow your current set of circumstances. Then helping people become overcomers. The Fight Club is about winning. Like, we can win in life. We can overcome any set of circumstances. Everything we face is just conflict. Conflict is just data that God actually gives us to navigate. And then finally, have boldness to share your story. So I'll end with this part. The Bible says, by Jesus' stripes, we're healed, right? Well, stripes were his physical wounds, right, that he experienced by being beat and being put on the cross. But stripes are also badges of authority in the military. And here's the revelation. There's only one difference between a wound and a scar or a stripe. And the difference is a stripe or a wound is the reality that a stripe or a scar is the reality that the wound has been healed. And so when you begin to go through the healing process and that wound is healed, if you hide your scars, you'll waste all the pain that you went through. But if you share your scars with others, then what'll happen is your scars will help other people heal. And it'll be like badges of authority in the spirit to help people through their process of growth and healing.
Man, this is some heavy stuff you're putting down on us here tonight. And the thing about it, you're well versed in whatever it is, based on your experience, and you're well versed in the programs that you put together. And of course, you wrote the information you put in the books that you have written, and your willingness to share and to be a leader, to be a life coach. One is saying, "Oh, here we go, Save Our Sisters Unplugged podcast. Hey, how are you, overcomers?" I love it because there's a problem. If we don't overcome it, it will do what? Overcome us.
Yes, sir. I got a saying: what you don't defeat, you will repeat. And sometimes we'll encounter things and we just didn't handle it right. We knew better, but didn't do better. And the thing that I love about God is that he'll let you have another swing at it, because you won't graduate that season until you overcome this thing that you've been facing. And it's not about, like, the way we defeat the devil is not fight the devil, it's overcome our old life. As we overcome our old life, what happens is we outgrow that person we used to be. And then the only aspect the devil has over us is our old life and our flesh. And when you can shut down that aspect and bear your cross and follow him and deny yourself, he has no access to you. And by default, you overcome him.
Okay. All right. Listen, thank you. I'm going to take this one. I know you said you're going to go because I know you got to go. There was either a comment or a question that came up, and I'm not sure if we're able to bring that up again. Okay, your story is amazing, but that's who our God is. Amazing, amazing. Yes, that's who our God is. All right, sir. Listen, I do thank you. I thank you so much for coming on, but I want you to have the last word, about you and certainly about your program and how people can get in touch with you.
Put it in the chat right now. Yes. So I think, let me see if it didn't go through. Okay. I don't know how to communicate. Okay. So, hey, listen, you can follow me at Welcome to the Fight Club on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. My name is Jerrod Smith. And I sent Michael a link as well, because I don't think it's letting me communicate in the chat.
Okay.
Maybe, let me see. Let's try it real quick. You let me know if it. Okay. I think I just was able to share something.
We'll share. Okay, good. All right.
Here goes. My website is jerrodsmithspeaks.org. And I work heavily with social emotional learning. So I go into schools. I was just in a school, West Lawn Middle School in Tuscaloosa Thursday, spoke to 5 7th grade classes about the key to confidence. And I kind of just shared my story about nonchalance, because when you develop the nonchalance, what happens is you kind of live a withdrawn life, and it slows down your momentum in life until you start traveling in cycles, and other people will move on with their life and you'll be on the sidelines of life, seeing the progression of everybody else and wishing or regretting you didn't make the same decision. And so I was sharing with them that the key of confidence is starting somewhere and having a goal. Like, you can shoot 1,000 shots, But if there's no goal on the basketball backboard, then you're gonna miss every shot, right? You got to have some type of goal that you want to work towards.
Yeah.
And I just shared with them that there's no such thing as failure. It's just a process of elimination. And so hard things get easy later. If you start trying now, then the things that are hard now get easy in the future. So anyway, like I said, welcome to the Fight Club. And I think I shared in the links, some of the links that you can follow me at, as well as JerrodSmithSpeaks.org. I would love to come to your city, come speak to your church, your school. I do Let's Unpack workshops. As a matter of fact, real quick, June 20th and 21st, I have the 3rd annual Let's Unpack conference workshop. That'll be right off Governor's Drive at the place called the Living Room. I do a two-day event, and this is the 3rd annual Let's Unpack event. And I just create a safe space. I have a bunch of different speakers that come, and people share their stories, and we just learn some strategies about breaking the silence and breaking the cycles of our lives. And so this year's event is called Unmuted. So helping people unmute their lives to be able to communicate effectively.
All right. You're going high tech word, but unmute your phone so we can hear you. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yes, sir.
Man, Jerrod, man, I really do thank you for just coming on to share your story and to really give us a lot of highlights about working with the youth population, especially who have this nonchalant attitude. And when they do, they cannot progress like where they want to be, and if we don't have people who wants to move forward, then when we get good and old, we have nobody that we can lean on, so I really do appreciate what you have done and how you keep on doing it. I just want to say thank you so much. And we're just praying that God will continue to bless the work that you're doing, because you're reaching a group of people that other people may either count out and knocked out just because they have not been able to reach them. But I'm so glad that you're reaching a group of people that I may not be able to reach. So the only thing I can do is just partner with you in your corner, and me in my corner, somebody over that other corner, over that other corner, like a boxing ring, got 4 corners.
Yes, sir. That's it.
You can kind of group up in your own little corner, yeah. So I really do appreciate you, sir. Really.
Yes, sir, man. Thanks. Listen, thank you so much for allowing me to be on tonight. And I'll share this quote real quick. My last book I wrote is called Emotional Currency. And Maya Angelou has a quote. She says, "People will forget what you say, they'll forget what you do, but they'll never forget how you make them feel." So be the type of person that other people wouldn't want to live without, and do the type of things that they'll never forget. You'll be celebrated wherever you go, and bless the world.
All right.
Amen.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much, Mr. Jerrod Smith. I thank you so much, man. So go on out and beat the bushes. A lot of kids hiding behind the bushes. Beat them out of the bush. Tell them to come on out, man. It ain't safe. It ain't safe back there. You may get a little whooping from my stick if you keep on hiding behind the bushes.
That's right.
Come on out and do what you and bring somebody else with you. Always be willing to bring somebody else with you. So I thank you, sir. Be blessed. And I know you got to go because you got your Monday night 8:30 to do.
Yes, sir.
Go get them. Okay. Thanks much. And let's look forward to the future doing something like this again. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. All right. And there you have it, people. This was my special guest this evening, Mr. Jerrod Smith. I really do appreciate all of the knowledge and wisdom that he has as a young man. Very, very good. And so, again, he put his contact info out there and what he's doing. So, tap into him, again, like I keep saying, just like, share, follow, and subscribe, just do all of these things. And I will guarantee you that we can begin to get the message out there to a lot more people. Okay. If you just like, follow, share, and subscribe. Do that. We thank you. And again, as always, if you would like to become a part of this program, please email drkidspeaks@gmail.com, and we will get you on the program. All right. Next week, we have another really good program for you. You don't want to miss next week either. You know, you don't want to miss it. So God willing and all of us able, we'll see you again next week on the shakeup, where we don't change the structure. We just reframe and look through it through different set of lenses. Okay? Right here. See you on next Monday. Be good. Have yourselves a wonderful week. Bye-bye now.